We are in Feeling into Forgiveness. Just for those of y'all that may not have been in rooms with me before, Mike Wells, I do my self-attunement work with y'all. So there's different kinds of facilitators that we have. I am a self-attunement guy, and I do that through introspection and reflection. And I use questions and aim our curiosities into ourselves for that. And so over in the chat, you can find some context questions to kind of prime your own pump about this process that we're going to get into. Now, let's welcome in Margaret, Kelly, and Sarah. So with this one, this particular room, it was like one of these last minute ones, so it wasn't long planned out. I don't have a whole bunch of things for it. Usually when I come to a circle, what y'all call master classes, I'm calling this particular type of circle. Um, I come with this fountain of information, and I'm just like, okay, I'm a resource. I put this stuff out here for y'all so that we can navigate ourselves to the core of the concept that we're presenting. With this one in particular, I'm going to let y'all know I have no idea what forgiveness is. I'm letting you know that right off the bat. This process circle is for me to learn this, and I learn in community. My body, my mind can pick up forgiveness. I looked up stuff and was going through different videos, articles, and Google definitions and stuff like that. And so I picked up a few things, but my body has no idea what it means. And so I'm here to be with Denard, who is a Christian man and is turned in the Bible inside out and upside down and everything like that, and has a forgiveness practice within him and a forgiveness definition within him, and then a bunch of us. That are in the room, a bunch of y'all members that are in the room that also have your own definitions of forgiveness, or you've been told, hey, you got to forgive. And then you're like, yeah, I do. And then you walk away from that interaction and you're like, what does the hell does that mean? I don't know what that means. So, this is an opportunity for all of us to get a little bit more clear, not only on the big overarching concept of forgiveness, but also our own individual and personal definitions so that we can actually employ them in our lives. Any definition, any word, any concept that is divorced from us, distanced from us, is so very difficult to apply to our own lives. And so this is an opportunity to bring it closer to ourselves and maybe even into ourselves.
I love that. I love that. And so we're also here to. So this is a learning process circle. But let me also add because he kind of shied away from some things. Insight Mike is also a passionate advocate for the human experience, the ecosystem. Right? He's a father. He's a partner. And I want to say, since I realized he did master classes with Czar, he's a former colleague of mine. So I'll say that as well. I'll say that. So that's where we need to start with forgiveness. But like literally what you all just saw here, like that laugh. If you haven't heard the laugh, right, that's something that really connects, right? There's a deep swell from the heart, the soul, that you can tell. He identifies as a neurodivergent individual, but also the reality of it is he teaches you how to slow down, stretch, and look within, right? So that's where that self attunement comes around, right? But it's still in, and this is what I would say. The way I see it, Mike, it's still in the lens of compassion and curiosity, right? That's how I see your work, and so for me, jumping into it, I'm gonna ask you two questions, or actually, let me ask you one question, and we can just throw how we feel out in terms of definitions or where you want to go next. And but I want to lay the context out real quick for people in terms of where this came out, because I think sometimes we all think that the group facilitators show up in a silo, or we're here to tell you about how you can pay for circles. No, we actually have to go through our own um, emotive and substantive conversations that really come down to like, who are you? Like, why are you even here? Why are you still here? Right. And one of those conversations came in our supervision, and it really came from the complexity of we went on a series, Mike, if you remember, and we're still on the series, defense mechanisms, right? We have certain defense mechanisms. Some of us, and this ties a
Hmm.
lot to forgiveness, right? So whether you have a definition for forgiveness, you respond in a way to the things that we're talking about when you say you have to feel to forgive. What I hear a lot is you have to feel to heal, right? But I don't hear about that feel to forgive. So out of our conversation of defense mechanisms, we started talking about individual journeys on forgiveness. And I was very blunt, you all, just to be honest. Like, it is thrown out a lot in the Christian realm, right? But we don't really know where. So the Bible would be the foundation. But I'm very leery and weary of people that are so quick to forgive, right? Because then in my mind is, did you really feel or did you suppress, right? And so when
That
Mike,
part, that
go
part
ahead. What's
right
coming up for
there.
you?
Yeah, that's the thing that really kind of captivates me is that if it's divorced from all these other processes that I know and that my body has told me aren't healthy for it, then what's left when it comes to the concept of forgiveness? Like,
Mm,
one of the things that I looked up, and just to break it down, y'all, those of y'all that know and know me, have been in my rooms and everything like that, you know that I like to break things down into the simplest pieces, the ingredients that we're able to then play around with to create other recipes or work with them creatively, however that is that we want to. And so what I was pinging off with forgiveness is like if there's no forgiveness, then mentally there's a over analysis. Physically, there's a punishment energy that's there. Either I want to punish or there's some punishment going on with physically that needs to happen, or emotionally there's anger slash resentment. And so it's like those three things out of all the things that I've kind of digested were the things that kind of came up for me. So mentally, over analysis, physical, there needs to be punishment or some kind of penalty. They need to pay for some shit. And then there's anger, emotionally. And so it's like if forgiveness is those things don't exist in those three places, there's there's ways that I can numb my mental processes so I won't be overanalyzing. There's ways that I can physically numb myself and suppress so that I don't have any sensations going on there. And then
yeah.
emotionally, I can fold myself up and say, okay, I don't my anger doesn't exist anymore. And so outside of um outside of suppressing, diminishing, and neglecting myself, then what does is forgiveness?
Mm. Okay, we go. Let's go there. Let's go there. Sarah, don't forget your thought. I know you're putting your hand up there. Let me ask you a quick question, Mike.
Yeah.
Before, and this is for everyone, so you can drop it in the chat. And if you all have been in rooms with Mike, you know definitely free flowing conversation. So feel free to. I'll be monitoring the chat. I'll probably have to log back out and come back in because I can't see the chat right now. But Mike, my core question for you, like outside of forgiveness, I'm going to use a different thing and tell me where you're tending to your heart in this space right now, right? Receiving a heartfelt apology or witnessing a genuine change in behavior. Which one resonates with you most right now? And I know you
Change.
don't like the either ors, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Changing behavior.
Why?
Yeah. Well, I have an experience of multiple 7-year relationships of quote unquote forgiving or slash forgetting slash overcoming slash getting
Mm,
past or moving on from. And it's like the stuff would still be there. There would be apology, but the action, the energy, the
ooh.
interaction would be the same. And so I was one that's willing to just like, okay, let me just go ahead and wipe the slate clean because I know we all have agency and we can all choose differently and be differently in whatever particular moment. And yet my my mechanism of forgiveness, that I never really called it, but just my own like letting things just being more in the moment and not attached to what happened before. That um that hurt. Let me just say it plainly. It hurt like a motherfucker. And
Yeah.
so like changed behavior for me was a way that my system, which I wasn't paying attention to at the time, would then
Mm.
be able to dissolve its angst so that there's an actual like kind of forgiveness energy there between us. I'm not like contracted. around this person.
Mm, okay. All right. Hey, listen, I'm gonna jump off, bro, and I love what you said. There's a couple of things you said I'm gonna pull back into the combo because it's doing something for me. And by the way, you all, I don't want here's something. Let's remove the pedestal, right? So let me say it this way: I've been taught forgiveness, but forgiveness is still a challenge for me,
Hmm.
right? So so I don't believe the forgiveness that I have I've experienced of my own outside of learning self forgiveness through heartbreak, right? So I want to say that this is also a space where I can learn. I'm a process what I believe my definition is, what I've experienced understanding biblically in terms of that, especially on the larger scales like reconciliation. Because there's also a conversation later we need to have about what atonement means, right? In that
Mm.
sense.
Hmm.
But I just want to say though, bro, the reality of it is if if I knew it in the way that you're saying and I didn't suppress it, I don't think it would still be a challenge for me. So I'm in a position to learn too. That's what I'm trying to
Mm.
say. So I'm gonna
Okay.
jump off just so I can see the chat, and then I'm gonna come back in, and hopefully I can hear the hands as well. And I'll
I-
be monitoring the chat for everyone as well.
Is there anything that you want to have happen while you're away?
You be you.
Oh, damn. Okay.
That's it. I'll be back, bro.
All right.
I appreciate the question.
All right. See. Oh, we got a whole ass room of folks. So before we get to Sarah, let's welcome in some more folks that I might not have gotten to just yet. Welcome in Ebony, Bojo, Ann, Adrian, Monica, Candace, Rose, Kelly, Jeanette, Rebecca, Kelly, Ginger, Sarah, Beth, Janabelle, and Candy. Welcome all y'all. Over in the chat, we have some answers to a question that Denard put out there. Is forgiveness do forgiveness resonate with you as a sincere and meaningful apology, or a change in behavior? And my answer was change of behavior, and you can see some other answers in there, mostly being change of behavior. And then up above that, I put context questions for most of my rooms. So to prime the pump, there's some questions there. What is your definition of forgiveness? Mental definition, physical definition, emotional definition. What isn't forgiveness? Because there's a lot of things that we can point to what is, but then what isn't? What I read a whole lot of things. It's not forgetting. It's not even the reconciling part. It's not about getting or giving an apology. There's so much more to what actual forgiveness is. Describe what forgiveness looks and feels like, and then how do you forgive? What do you do to forgive? So that how is people say, oh, you got to forgive them. Okay, how do I do that? And because like what it sounds like is, oh, you're just supposed to think forgiveness, declare forgiveness, and then it's done. But there's so much, again, there's so much more. Even Denard is speaking to, I got taught it, but there's also a deeper component of feeling in it that must be tended to as well. So, Sarah,
Mike,
yeah.
so your job is to keep me from going on and on because I have thought about forgiveness a lot, and
Hmm.
I dare say that I have found how to forgive. I don't have anyone that I have not forgiven. Um, so, and I don't foresee finding anyone that I couldn't forgive too.
Okay.
Um, right? Seems like a lie. I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you from my perspective. Feels good in my
Ooh,
body,
I'm gonna
right?
give you, I'm gonna give you a little nugget. Maybe it's like a big piece of gravity to hold you down
Yeah.
some.
Do I
And
need that?
so, well, I'm gonna say why.
Oh,
Because again, I'm gonna reiterate. I have a mental grasp, like a
right.
big general grasp of what it is, but my body doesn't know. And the way
Oh,
that a whole lot of words can fly
mm,
around, my body's not gonna catch that. So as much as you
yes.
can, like really
Yeah.
hit the weight of it so
Mm,
that my body can hear,
yes.
then we'll be good.
You got it. And you're lucky for you. I already talked about this with Candace earlier today, so I've got the weight of it and not all the fluff.
Okay.
Right on my finger, right on my tip of my tongue. So first of what I was going to say is that I think we have to change that question of Denard's because I think there's a difference between apology and accountability.
Hmm.
So an apology is when you broke my vase. Accountability is when you broke my heart. And so there's two different things that need to happen there. And for accountability, you need to approach me all on your own and understand the way that you have hurt the thing that you've done, and that the thing you did, no matter, no justifications, I don't want to know why, that it hurt me, right? And then you have the right to, and then I have to decide. It's still my decision whether I'm going to remain in concert with you. And if I am, then I'm going to tell you what I think, what the, like, we need to have a change in this. I need to know this behavior is not going to happen again. I think the problem that if someone can do that for you, if they've come up with the behavior, if they've come up with that all on their own, that is different than you telling them what they did and whatever too. If you feed it to them, it's not coming from their body. You know what I mean? It's coming, I mean,
Mm,
they can hear you say it, but you
right.
can't, I mean, like, they have to be able to do that. You have to say, they really hurt me. And they have to be able to have the self-awareness to understand what they did. Because if they don't, it's never going to work. And I think a change in behavior a lot of the time is like measuring for the absence of something. And that's very, very hard to do. And that can go, I mean, you can get in a real loop with a lot of things, because whenever any behavior looks, or whenever you see them doing something that looks similar to the thing that hurt you, your brain will make a comparison to the past automatically, because that's how we make meaning of things, and then say ding ding, warning warning, and now you're going to
Hmm.
wonder what they're doing, if they're doing it again. And if you keep, and so I think also in that agreement with, if you're going to remain in a relationship with them, if they can be accountable, is that they have to understand that when anything looks like that for a little while, they're going to have to make the extra effort to reassure you, because they're the one that did the wrong thing, and they need you to be able to make a new set of comparisons in your brain to times when something happened and they didn't do it. They have to do that work. Like the change, that's the work. That's the change in behavior. It's noticing, ooh, and being mindful of the fact that it's not your fault that that looks to you like this thing. They've hurt you. Your nervous system is bruised, when someone breaks your heart, it's like a bruise inside. It doesn't just
Hmm.
go away, even if they can explain it away.
So let
If
me
you you know
let me check in with this. So I've heard what I'm hearing is my my forgiveness is dependent on the other person's actions, change,
well,
and accountability.
that's
That's
only if you're keeping the person. That's only if you can forgive them either way. This is if you want to keep them in your life. I think we have to think about that too. We can forgive them either way. That's my other part of it. I was just going with that
okay.
apology thing. I have another part. I can let other people talk, and then I can go back to how I think that we actually do that part of forgiving anybody, aside from, I mean, apart, even if they're not able to give accountability, because most of the time they can't. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Most people
Yes.
can't do
So
it. So yeah,
yes.
I can
Yeah.
stop.
So
And then you can come back to me
yes.
whenever.
Yeah. Come back. Yeah. Come back. We'll come back around to that because yeah, that's one of those where it's like my body was like, wait, hold on, but the
Yep.
forgiveness is mine. Why are we talking about
Yes.
somebody else?
I don't like
Oh
this. I
shit.
don't like this.
So okay. Whew. Thank you, Sarah. It's a good way to lead off. Right. Evangeline, and then we'll get Denard to jump up in here too.
For me, I'm probably going to cry, folks, because I had an emotional day again. For me, forgiveness is not ever going to be an external thing unless it resulted in a physical loss of something. If it's an action, regardless of the continuation of that action or a repeat offense, um, that that has nothing to do with my forgiveness. That has to do with their actions and
Hmm.
their lack of ability to be true to their word, but that doesn't mean that they can't be forgiven.
Okay.
um, for me, forgiveness is something that lies outside of anybody else. Forgiveness is just within me, and it is something that is very, 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 very finite in the sense of, like, really, forgiveness should be infinite. There should always be an abundance of forgiveness, as long as somebody in the moment. um but I feel like everybody has room for sin. Everybody has room to fail themselves and fail other people, so we should always be open to forgive. I think just forgiveness, once you've truly been able to forgive yourself, it's easier to forgive other people.
Okay. So forgiveness for you is not an external thing. Oh, well, in certain circumstances, but mostly it is something that is internal and personal to you to offer. Okay. Thank you. What you got, Denard? I know we have four other hands. I want to check in with you too.
Yeah, I'm just loving the conversation. So I see that there's an introspection from what and let me say this real quick. So I hear I hear a lot of your background, Evangeline, and I also hear your heart. So I want to nudge back to also what you're saying in terms of all that you're experiencing, but I also want you to lean into what you're feeling in this moment because I think that's at the heart of this conversation. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's a distinction to me in terms of your belief in forgiveness and then your experience of forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that what you're sharing, because to me, I would then draw down where you're going. So, is forgiveness something we need to practice daily? And if so, what does that look like? Because you made a distinction for me between self forgiveness, right? And then the extending forgiveness to one, regardless of change behavior, because to me that sounds like and I won't throw out too many terms like a component of grace, right? Understanding that we all have flaws, we all have shortcomings, and we just have a minuscule bit of someone's story, so therefore we have to extend grace. So I think that that's where a lot of
Yes.
these challenges come. Yeah, I'm following you. I'm following you. So
100%.
yeah, me and you have a similar understanding, but I think this is where we have to also be honest with the challenges. I have to stop now. My dirty diaper disciple just barged in, so that's my marker to stop, Mike. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Introspection, there is a distinction between self forgiveness that I'm hearing and extending forgiveness, right? But I'm also hearing, for me, the core question then would be, then is that something we should, if it's infinite, right? Is it something we should practice daily? If so, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
For me,
I'll put
that's
that question
prayer.
in the chat. Oh, prayer.
That's
Okay.
prayer.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for that, Denard, and thank you, Evangeline. All right, Rosa.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Hearing all of this, it's forgiveness is honestly really questionable. It ties down to what's okay to forgive, how can you forgive, when can you forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And in my experience, it feels like when you forgive, you're supposed to forget. But the way that I see it, it's you can forgive, and you never talk about wherever it was. But do you really forget? Are those two things tied down? Do you forgive and forget? You don't. But when you really forgive, a question that always lingers around my mind. It's like, do you forget and do you just like never talk about what you forgave someone of?
Mm-hmm.
And then what is forgiveness supposed to feel like? Are you just supposed to forgive to tell yourself, oh, I forgive this person for that and I feel better? I mean, is it something that you do just to make yourself feel better? Or do you forgive because you truly mean it?
Right.
Right. And forgiving somebody, I feel like has a lot to do with maybe yourself or how you are, but it also comes down, in my experience, I feel like it means like, do you forget someone because you love them and you just want them to feel good? Do you forgive someone because you want to feel better about yourself? But would the conversation ever spark up again? A lot of people, in my experience, it feels like if you forgive someone, that's it. Whatever happened, happened. But a lot of the times, I don't feel like I can ever be comfortable with what happened. I think I just forgive people because I want things to be calm between us and okay. But forgiving, what is? It's
Right.
Tuesday.
I
I
hear it.
hear it.
I can
I
hear the confusion. I can hear the questions. I can hear the lack of clarity because there's so many other things that are attached to. I'm going to mute you for a second because I'm hearing the echo. Oh, there we go. Woo! That was, woo! That was,
Yeah, I got you. I got
okay.
you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I can't do it anyway. um, there's so many things that are attached to it. What I've read is like forgiving isn't about forgetting. The best way that I've even understood from whatever I've gathered, the best way I could viscerally understand that is forgiveness is about not living in the same moment that the transgression, the harm, the pain, the wounding happened. So it's not necessarily that things can't be brought up again. And it's not it what because what it sounds like you're talking about where it's like I've forgiven even, for them or to, to make sure that things aren't dusted up and all that sounds a lot like bypassing. It sounds a lot like dismissing or
Hmm.
neglecting more than the actual process of forgiveness really when it comes down to it. It's like, oh, there's a I don't live back there anymore. The same way that if I had a cut on my arm, that cut lives with the harm that happened. And so it's still going to be there until it's tended to enough for it to close, scar over, and have all the nerve endings be woven back together. And now it's all patched up, and it can still, if I haven't like processed the emotional part of it, it still can live in that past place. But forgiveness feels where it seems like, from what I've been gathering, more of a I have felt the feeling, I've gone into it, intended to it, and processed all the mental, physical, and emotional and other things that were involved in that wound, and now all of my resources free to be present rather than mending a past thing.
Is there a time frame that wound heals, or it's just a it's
No, sadly enough, there's no like time limit, time frame, because just like time doesn't heal all wounds, time plus intention plus resource plus tending plus consistency then becomes healing. Uh, the same thing with forgiveness. I mean, I've been trying to understand is that all of these things that we're talking about in terms of feeling our feelings and healing our feelings and healing our wounds, there's not a it's going to take this long because of all the things that are involved in it.
that was so deep. That made perfect sense to me.
Hmm. Thank you, Rosa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Denard, you back up, you back in the game?
Yeah, and I'm monitoring the chat for right now. And I think there's a lot of agreement with what you shared in the chat. Feel free to go to the hands, but I'm just noticing that people are defining forgiveness in the chat. You probably already got. If you did you already take a look at the chat? So I
I
don't want to
haven't
do
I haven't
something.
been able to. All I've really been able
Okay.
to do is be with people's shares.
Okay, bet. So what I do see just in general, and I'll call out some things, and feel free to navigate back to the space. But I don't have anything to add. I'm just capturing what I hear thus far. Everybody, when we first posed that question earlier, when we had that question, I think it was about heartfelt apology or change behavior. There was
Hmm.
an agreement, change behavior, where the conversation is going now. I think also people started to, like Rosa, you were doing process, right?
Hmm.
So I think something that we're also hearing, you have to take time to process in order to heal, right? We're trying to heal without processing. And what we're also the distinction we're also saying here too is in order if you believe in order to heal, you must feel. In order to forgive, you must feel too, right? And
Hmm.
so we're getting to that. And I'm also seeing in the chat, I guess I missed the analogy. I hate that I missed the analogy, breaking a vase versus breaking a heart. But I want to read Vanessa's real quick. Forgiveness is understanding the other's choices, the other's choice, so their choice. Forgiveness is not excusing behavior. you forgive by radically accepting them as solely okay, you forgive as radically accepting them as solely their choice. Okay, so their actions are solely their choice. There is no need for individual retaliation, but justice in the court of law is important. And I'll stop here and I'll try to recap later again. But you have people in the chat kind of identifying what the root of forgiveness. And I think Sarah made a distinction that part of it can be stemmed from some, especially self forgiveness or own shame that makes a
Mm,
hindrance. So I'll
okay.
stop here.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You're
All right.
welcome.
Candace.
Okay, trying to remember what I was going to say. um, I'm really struggling here. I, for me, forgiveness. As much as I think I know somebody's story, I don't. Um, and I don't know like where somebody has been. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what they've gone through. Even though I've known them my whole life. Even though, it could be my mom, it could be my dad, it could be a family member, it could be the person that I'm struggling with in a toxic relationship. As much as I think I know their story, I don't. And so for me, forgiveness is I have to believe that that person has or is carrying some kind of inner demons inside of them to do the things that they've done to hurt somebody. I want to believe unintentionally. Okay. And so my voice is shaking because I feel really passionate about this because I
Mm,
forgive all the time. I forgive way too much. I give the benefit of the doubt way too much because I want to believe that people are really good and that they don't intentionally want to hurt me or anybody.
mm,
And so I choose to forgive. Um, but, I'll sit back and I'll watch. And I don't forgive them for them. I forgive them for me. So that poison is not just moving through my blood and driving me crazy. So I keep it internally. I but when they start telling me I have to forgive them and they want to hear me forgive them, I'm not going to do it
mm.
because I'm not going to ask somebody for an apology if they're not ready to give it. And I don't want somebody to do that to me. Forgiveness should come from inside, like it's like from myself. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so if I'm sitting back and I'm watching you after I've chosen to forgive you myself internally, and I see you moving in a way that you are still hurting me, and that you are still repeating the same fucking behaviors that you've been doing over and over and over again, and I'm still choosing to forgive you because I want to believe that you've been through your own trauma and you don't really mean it. But when I see you moving in places and spaces where you're intentionally still hurting me, then I have to like put myself in check and I have to really start regrouping. Like, what am I doing?
Okay.
What am I doing? Am I just a freaking sap? Why am I forgiving you if you're choosing intentionally to keep hurting me? And so then I get stuck and I don't know where to go from there.
Right.
I
All
think
right.
that's all I had to say.
Okay. Thank you, Candace. With what you're sharing, um, I have a little bit of a internal conflict or internal
Me
friction
too. Me too.
with
Me too.
like
Yep.
I keep forgiving, but I keep doing, and there's a missing component of acceptance in there where it's like I accept that this is what you're choosing to do and continuing to choose to do, and that forgiveness has a layer of acceptance in it that's like, oh, I accept the pain that I've been given. I accept that you have given it to me. I accept that you will want to continue to do this. I can still forgive and not hold anger and resentment in it. And at the exact same time, for me, I can go. I can distance myself because I don't need to be in proximity because I accept that this is what you choose to do. I
Yeah,
and
no, I
so
don't
like
I don't I don't want to like I don't want to maybe I said that wrong. I'm not accepting that you keep doing it. I'm
No, that's what I'm saying.
noticing.
That's exactly what I'm
Oh, okay,
saying.
okay, okay,
Yeah, that's
okay.
exactly what I'm saying. Where it's like
Like, it's like, where do I draw the line? I got to draw the line somewhere.
right in the line for me, what it sounds like is the line is acceptance, accepting that this 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 person chooses and repeatedly chooses to wound and harm and whatever, do these things to me. I am with me. If I accept that, then I am accepting that I am choosing to be in proximity and close to that. And so if I accept both of those things and I don't want that anymore, I can't necessarily change them, but I can change what I do in relation to that. And
Yes.
that's what I'm kind of like I'm kind of missing. So I rather than kind of also go back and forth. I know we have multiple hands. We have so many
Yeah,
hands,
yeah.
and I want to definitely hear from multiple. But I thank you for offering your story in that. Right, Danielle.
Okay, I stepped into this room because what I feel about forgiveness is, and this is unpopular, but um, to those who have hurt me, fuck forgiving them. Fuck
Mm,
forgiving them. I'm not
mm-hmm,
going to forgive them. And the reason I say that, and it maybe it not be popular, is because forgiveness is reserved for me in my mind. Forgiveness is reserved for somebody who has verbalized an apology and made a changed behavior modification, and then I will say, I forgive you for this action or thing that you have done. That's never going to fucking happen in these relationships. So I will never offer any sort of forgiveness as far as I forgive you, you are somehow um, absolved. I don't have that power. What I do have the power to, and how I feel into forgiveness and what I remind myself of and how I deal with it, is an understanding of what caused the behavior, of what happened, what really actually in reality took place. Why did it maybe take place? How can I look back with love and kindness? Um, And that is also the piece where I feel into forgiving myself. You know, how do you forgive yourself? I'm here to accept it and say it and make change behaviors, but I don't feel it. So,
mm-hmm,
feeling forgiveness for me is looking back at past Danielle with loving kindness instead of judgment. Um,
mm,
and not excusing or saying this was okay or not okay, because it doesn't matter. What's done is done. What I can do is look back with compassionate understanding and loving kindness. And that is the best forgiveness that I'm going to receive for myself and for others.
okay. What I hear you're introducing into this is an understanding, like a deeper and broader understanding of the moment of the transgression, as well as that understanding bringing forward a care and a kindness and a love.
Yeah,
Um,
my dad, I'm never going to forgive him because he's never going to apologize. But if I look back on who he is and what he's done, I have an understanding that he was abused severely as a child. He doesn't know how to cope with his emotions. He has no fucking clue how to deal with his anger. And those are not his fault. And that doesn't mean that I forgive him. It means that I understand it. And that's why I'm willing to, keep calm and move on and not have those feelings of, why can't you just change, or why can't you just, and have that peace.
hmm Okay, so yeah, not looping in the harm itself and the wound itself, but being able to tend to that and have it for you. Okay. Hmm. Thank you, Danielle. Ooh, this one's a lot.
It
There's
is.
so
It is.
much.
It is. It is. Because Mike, this is the last thing I promise you. This is a very interesting concept, Danielle. Because what I do hear though, because I shared this with you, Mike. I shared this real general. For me, and I'm taking this from the perspective as like someone that has espoused very clearly that I identify as a Christian and things of that nature. So I shared this with Mike that I had noticed two distinctions and experiences in my life. I would forgive to avoid. Got to hear what I'm saying. I would forgive to avoid resentment, or because I realized my expectations were unrealistic. Okay, so that's where I'm like matching a little bit with you, Danielle, right? Um, but when you made that boisterous F, right? I feel like that's more of the feel of forgive
Mm-hmm.
than everything else that was said, right?
Mm.
And here's my onus in it because you intellectually made sense, but sometimes and you've heard me say this: you can't make sense out of nonsense, right? Some behaviors cannot be explained away, right? Because they're still in the process of becoming, they're still in the process of understanding, and then we might not have all the doubt, the information, and sometimes because of grief, right, we don't get that closure, right? And so in this moment, for me, it's like what I also hear, and this is not a workshop type of situation, but what I also hear from me, and this goes back to what Candace was saying too. And when I had the introspection, other times I struggled to forgive because it was actually more of a feeling of self righteousness, right? I'm not saying that because of what you said, but I'm saying even though I know I've made similar mistakes, right, with like my own kids and all these things, and in recycling some of that behavior, my question is then where do we place the hurt honestly, right? Where do we process the hurt honestly? Is it just looking back with compassionate eyes, but still having the anger, the resentment, that with even the little information you could have done better, right? And you still have an opportunity, but you don't. But that's why I feel like the F is more about getting you to that space of forgiveness, because then you can really say how you feel. You know how we say, just tell me how you really feel, right? And I
Mm.
think that that's what forgiveness, when you feel forgiveness, in my opinion, that's what it's saying. Tell me how you really feel, right? So I'll
Mm.
stop here. I don't know if that makes sense. That was a roundabout way, because I don't want to color anyone's experience. What I am saying is that um, I experienced it in a sense of self forgiveness and more self righteousness and withholding that forgiveness. And what I'm also saying is that um, that moment where we're really like, I, ugh, I really don't want to do this. And we're saying, I need to do it. But instead of saying, I feel like this is what's right for me, you start to notice the bitterness turn into better. Right. That's where I think it's important to know what it feels like. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise we can confuse it for like, I'm over this because I'm over this person. Or they'll never change their behavior, or I need to make sense of it. So I'll stop here.
Okay. So you're talking about that expressing the feeling that's actually present
Yeah.
to start from the yeah, fuck all that. I ain't doing this.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
being
yeah,
able
yeah.
to just allow that to be expressed. And in that expression, there's more that gets uncovered. There's more
Correct.
that gets opened and dissolved, and then you can it's like a part of the journey because it's like this is where you are, this is where my
Yes.
mind is, this is where my body is, these are where my emotions are right now. Yes,
Yes.
this forgiveness is a process, there's a end to it, but it's all together, and part of that journey is where are you at right the hell now. You can say
Yeah.
forgiveness, you can think forgiveness, but where your feelings at.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to name I want to name something. Time. So we have about 13 minutes left. I know that Kelly, Vanessa, and Jordan haven't been able to share yet. Also Bojo as well. And I'm going to go with those four. But I also want to say too that I have a digesting our own words room on Saturday and Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. They're one's for one segment, one is for the other. I can't remember which one is which, but Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, digesting our own words. We're going to continue. this conversation. So anybody who has already shared and that won't be able to share here, we will definitely get more into this some more because this is truly a process session for me. I'm still trying to sort through and find what my physical and visceral definition of forgiveness is, and y'all are really helping me out by expressing and sharing what your definitions are for yourself. So we're not talking from this place of, oh, I know what the divine or the absolute definition is. We're
Correct.
speaking from our personal experience, and us collectively are able to define that together. So I thank y'all for this. Okay, Kelly.
Hi, Mike and Denard. How are you?
Hello. Well,
That's
Good.
good. That's good. Um, so I guess my answer to the how do you forgive? What do you do to forgive? Um, Unfortunately, I hold grudges and resentment far too often. Um, but I'm working on a forgiveness practice with things that I repeat to myself as a way to kind of self soothe, and so the anger and unforgiveness doesn't keep bubbling up. Because if I don't tell myself something or calm myself down, I just kind of let the anger well up and just like a like boiling water in a pot that boils over.
mm-hmm,
I feel like that's how my unforgiveness becomes. And then the reason why it's like that is because there are constant infractions, on a daily basis, daily, weekly basis, on the part of my sisters usually. Um, I don't really have a fantastic relationship with them. I have a mean oldest sister and a sister who I call quote unquote nice sister.
mm-hmm,
However, my nice sister, she tries to remain neutral, but at that same time, she ends up kind of dismissing my um feelings towards the situation. Like, for instance, my oldest sister is always um I guess making empty promises, and I
mm-hmm,
get really angry because it's a very long history of it, and it's just like I'm sick of it, absolutely sick of it. And when I was telling my nice sister the other day, you know, about a ball that my oldest sister dropped, and my oldest sister just made an excuse,
mm-hmm,
like blah
mm-hmm,
blah blah blah, and it's just like, when are they gonna realize um they have an integrity issue? It's
See,
you
and
know it
that's where the disconnect then comes in for me because one, they're not. They're
yeah
not. You said there's a long history of this, and so there's
yeah
a already a track record of, oh, it's not going to happen. And so, like when you're talking about you know what uh, non-forgiveness feels like in you, and to bubble over and everything. And so you were talking about the practice that you do, and you were talking about that being affirmation for you.
yeah. I mean, I say like a kind of a whole mantra thing to myself to help myself calm down
Mm-hmm.
and to remember to forgive them. Um, and it works. I just need to like make sure that I do it is a thing. Um, but there was, and I'll wrap it up real quick. I was in a caregiver group, and I was talking, and one of the members suggested to me to tell my sisters, I don't want your empty promises. Just go ahead and visit dad, and let me be. Basically, like, leave me alone, basically. Like, and I love that suggestion so much, and I feel like I'm going to use that, whenever they try to be like whatever they be like. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just what I wanted to share. Thanks
Okay.
for listening.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Vanessa.
Yeah, hi. I think it's important, your original question about how we define it, because I feel like how
Mm-hmm.
you choose to define forgiveness is ultimately what will lead you toward your path of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever that is individual to everybody, and there's so many different variables, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's less about our emotions, although we should still honor them and sit with them and grow with them. I feel like forgiveness is more of a logical decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, without needing to understand someone else's choices and without the emotion of how those choices have affected us, I mean, again, it doesn't mean dismiss our pain or possibly their pain that may have led them to their poor choices. I'm going to circle it back to what you said earlier, MiiK. It's more about choosing to change what we do in relation to that experience. And what's worked for me is accepting that it's a separate thing. So it's so you move from the emotional pain,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, your anger and your resentment, to a more logical decision making in our response to that without dishonoring how we feel.
Okay. So we're still honoring, still processing and dealing, but for your definition is more of a decision that is made. I have decided to forgive, and that can you tell me a little, just a tiny bit more about that mental, that logical decision to forgive? Is there anything more than just the making a decision to forgive?
Yes, it's accepting, basically accepting the things we can't change
Mm-hmm.
without having to understand why the person has done what they've done. Because, like someone said earlier, everyone feels their own pain or has made mistakes, and that's all understandable. So it's less about trying to understand why what happened, and it's not dismissing our pain. We're still allowing ourselves to feel it. At the same time, it's moving to the decision to accept that it's occurred and then ultimately decide how we are going to react in relation to that, but
Mm,
not in an emotional, angry, resentful way.
mm-hmm.
Again, you can feel those things more as a, okay, this is, no matter where they came from or the pain that may have led them to make those choices or how it's made me feel, I'm going to choose to understand that I don't understand, basically, and not take it as personal and look at it as basically just facts and make the logical decision to um, grow from the pain, but responding in a way that is less emotional and
Okay.
more radically accepting. I
Okay.
hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. It did, and it gave me another angle too, because what I was hearing also connected to what Denard was mentioning earlier about expectation. Accepting this as it is, and then being able to act accordingly sounds a lot like, oh, I had an expectation that this was going to happen, but now can shift my expectations. No, no, this is what's happened, and now I can choose and move around that information that I have.
Right, solely on the information that you have while still
Okay.
honoring your feelings
Okay.
and not holding on to them in relation to that person without retaliation or making them want to pay or, being vengeful or anything like that. More of
Hmm.
just choosing to accept and move forward.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vanessa. All right. Denard, do I have time to take one more hand?
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do me like that. You know, it's whatever you want, man. I'm in your face. I'm in your face. And
Well,
I
I'm
would
just
also
thinking
say
about.
to
I'm
you,
also
bro,
just thinking
trust
about
yourself.
time. Yeah, I'm just
Okay.
thinking
Yeah.
about time for
Yes.
you.
Oh, fair, fair, fair. I'm already in trouble, so don't worry about it. Don't worry
All
about
right,
it. We
let's see how
good, bro.
deep this rabbit hole of trouble can go. All right, Jordan.
Yeah, so forgiveness is something I understand intellectually, but is something that I am working towards in therapy right now. Like I have been hurt by the men closest to me.
Hmm.
I have been exploited by men that I thought were safe. I have been betrayed by people that I trusted, and at the same time, I have also been a betrayer.
Hmm.
Um, and so when it comes to I just recently acknowledged like the dense black mass of hatred that I have within myself that I don't show to other people because it's not for them. Like that's something that I need to process through, and I try not to act on it. But like the situations that I have finally come out of, and I'm finally like clearing that haze, were just so atrocious on so many levels. Like there's a part of me that's just like, oh my god, I understand. Like these people, they're in survival mode. They're trying to make it. They're doing the best that they can. They're highly traumatized. They're all this. They're all that. And then there's another part of me that's just like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? Like, literally, like, what is wrong with you? Or like, where in your mind did you think that these things like were okay? Like, I feel deep-seated grief if trash flies out of my car and I can't catch it because the wind's blowing too hard. I still remember I was sprinting in the rain and a water bottle fell out and I was like, oh my God, it's going to go into the river. I just littered. Like, that is how quickly and how easily, like, I feel guilt. And I have recently walked away from people who don't. One of the people that hurt me very, very deeply for over 2 years, like mocked me, controlled how I dressed, like took over the entire harmonious workspace that me and other people have cultivated, changed all of the boundaries, liquidated all of the boundaries, like just chaos after drama after chaos for 2 years. And when I finally had enough, when I was finally told, you're in a domestically violent relationship with this person that I have held hours upon hours upon hours of space for, this person that I poured into, this person that I went out of my way for, this person that in my mind, I wasn't making myself smaller, that I was being understanding, that I was being empathetic, that I was holding space for. To get to the final end of that road and to be told, oh, you've just been abused the entire time. All
Mm.
that love, all that understanding, all that empathy that you were giving don't freaking matter. Like, that is when I hit a wall within me of, I don't care anymore. And like, I have never in my life set my sights on trying to destroy another person. Like, never in my life. And that's why I put in the chat earlier. There's people who've been abused are either victims or they're perpetrators. And this was the first time in my life I saw myself cross that line into perpetrator behavior. Like, was it the worst thing in the world? No. Like, it's catty female shit. It's kind of speaking facts that were true because I'm pretty sure this person most likely relapsed. Like, was I lying? No. But it's the fact that I had the intent to destroy another person. And that's never an intent that I have truly had within myself or at
Hmm.
least been aware of.
Hmm.
And I remember I reached out and I was very honest. I was like, I cannot blame you for how your actions impacted me because I was not communicating that clearly. Now, in hindsight, I sit down and I'm just like, no, I was. Was I firm about it? No. Was I fierce about it? No. Was I meek about it? Was I quiet about it? Yeah, but I was still trying to communicate that. Um, did I just like have a hard brick wall and say, hey, dude, I don't freaking like this behavior. Go F yourself and like don't come to me like that. Like I wasn't like that because I don't want to be that harsh. I don't want to be that, verbally violent in a sense, because like it hurts me when people do that. Like, why can't we just be soft? Why can't we just be understanding? And with this person, like this was somebody who cut me off from all of my support systems, who introduced me to one of the most abusive therapists that I've ever met in my entire life, who watched me deteriorate and encouraged me dating an end-stage alcoholic, knowing that I did not realize how bad active addiction was, while they're also in recovery and they understand. Like, and the entire time I'm like, wow, I was selfish for you. Like, you're my friend. And I'm the bad person because you just watched me go through dating an active addict. You're a recovering addict. Like, that's super messed up on my behalf. Like, just
Okay. And
constantly just looking at how I've impacted them, how I've impacted them, and how I've impacted them, with bare minimum being received of like, wow, Jordan, this is how I impacted you. And even when I reached out to them, because like forgiveness,
so Jordan, yeah,
sorry,
well,
I'm mad.
you're getting to the forgiveness part.
Yes. And
Okay.
so I reached out to them, and this is what I'm trying to learn about forgiveness, because in my heart and my mind, when there has been transgressions on either side, when there has been pain on both sides, that means coming together and being resolution focused, saying, here's what I'm responsible for. The other person acknowledges what they're responsible for. There's a happy medium, there's a mutual understanding. And I was met with, oh, well, and I've heard this person say this multiple times before, like true accountability has changed behavior, even though I'm finding out from other people that the same thing that was done to me is already playing out with other people. So it was like, so you're just scripting that. You're just scripting that. Your words are empty. That doesn't mean anything. Like, I've cut myself off from everybody. I'm in therapy 3 times a week, and I'm trying to figure out what the F I did to allow this to get to this point. And you're giving me empty words. And like, I reached out to apologize because I was still appalled by like my behavior. I don't think that they're appalled by their behavior. And I don't think that they even realize how terrifying it was for 2 years to be in that. And that's what makes
So,
me so angry. And that's what I don't know how to forgive. Like, how
mhm,
do I forgive without the
right.
acknowledgement of my pain? And that has been my pattern for a very long time, because abusers don't apologize. They don't own it. And since I was a little
Okay,
girl, I have owned it.
Jordan.
So I was like, somebody has to.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing that just kind of resonates the loudest out of all that is how. There is still that question, because I've heard multiple angles. I've heard the angle of emotion and feeling. I've heard the angle of mental and logical. And I hear all the time about the declaration of it, the moving on and the moving past. And this isn't around. This isn't from you. This is just all collectively in this hour, hour plus that we've all been together, and still. And still, when I even, as I'm sitting in it, as I'm feeling into what other folks are letting me know, and what I've been able to, glean a little bit here and there from the chat and everything, is there's still this gap in the how of it, because there's still so much of the, oh, I just forgot about it, or I just cleaned the slate, or I just bypassed my feeling, or I just I'm looking for an apology, or and there's so many other things, and I'm like, where's the where's the how? And like somebody was saying earlier, the what, the definition plugs into the how also.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, we'll be continuing this in my digesting our own words rooms. Put a couple of links over in the chat with that, Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, just so we can dig a little bit deeper, because I know we have a whole lot of folks in the room, and there's a whole lot going on, and we've been just processing. right now. We're not even in the place of being able to clarify because there's still a whole lot of process. Like it sounds like we have a whole room full of people and we've heard about forgiveness and it seems like none of us know what the hell it is or how to
What what
do it.
what what I took notes. I took notes, and I kind of I'm gonna try to summarize real quick because I based on your questions, I want everyone to kind of you because that's what you were doing. Honestly, this is why it's also keep in mind it's a process circle as we close out, Mike. And I shared this with Sarah in the chat. So it may seem like we're landing in different places or even circling back, but that's really what a process is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think let's go through your questions because I think this is very important in terms of where we close out because you gave us a great template, bro. And I hope we don't lose it. If let me see if I can
I'm about to go
repost
grab it. I'm
those
about to go
questions.
grab it
Okay,
right now
bet.
for you. Yep.
Because I wrote these things down and they really helped me based on all the stuff. And I didn't get everybody's thoughts, but I kind of put them together based on that's why I was more quiet because I'm like, I like what you did here. Because there's a distinction in what it is and what it's not. I've heard that at least in this space. So first, what I wrote down is going back to what you just said, it's complex. So it is complex. However, I'm also noticing it's a personal process. That's what I'm
Mm,
seeing from what people shared. There's something I think you said it. It's not forgetting. I wrote that. It's not in terms of excusing or condoning the harmful behavior. Thank you. Okay, I'm seeing it in chat now. Okay, what is it? What is in it? It's okay. What is it? Also, it's about releasing. I heard the resentment, the anger, or properly placing it, however you all want to say it. I heard
mm-hmm.
someone say the desire of revenge, so releasing that too. I saw that in the chat. This also what it is. It's about moving forward from the hurt, right, while still acknowledging the pain that was caused, right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not pretending it didn't hurt. So that's one distinction that I was hearing some people say, but moving past it. But I wrote that down because if we pretend that it didn't hurt, that's the suppression, right?
Right.
That happens. And then another thing, this is Sarah. Sarah, mostly I took this from Sarah because if it's personal, it's not always about reconciliation and restoring the relationship to what it once was, right? So I think
Mm,
that that's also important here, right? In terms of what we talked about. Now, what does it look like and feel is what you described. What forgiveness look. Okay, so what I wrote down, and Vanessa, you were getting to this. I felt like even though you described it as a logical thing, Vanessa, when I read your stuff, I felt peace, girl. Like I'm like you're describing. There's still a feeling in it, right? When I get logical, so I wrote down a sense of peace, right? Or
mm,
even we can describe freedom or weight lifted. So I wrote that down. So at least I heard that in this conversation. It's still a painful process, right? It's not easy, clearly, because we're all. And another thing I saw, what does it feel like or look like? Uh, it feels like a decision. That's what I was getting from Vanessa and a couple of other people. It is a choice, right? So that's what it is too.
mm-hmm.
Um, um, and I think where we're also that where I get to in this, like, how do you forgive? I think that's where the circling keeps coming. And like, what do you do to forgive? I think that's so. I heard prayer. I heard a lot of different things. Talking to a therapist and a counselor. I just heard this recently here. But the important takeaway for me,
Mm-hmm.
this is the important takeaway, bro. Like, it's a powerful tool towards healing. That's at least the takeaway. It's not easy, but it's a powerful tool towards healing. And I would actually say growth in terms of oneself, right? Because that's what I
Right.
was hearing from even the insight Sarah shared. Like it's also about learning how to let go of our own shame, right? And so just food for thought, right? That I think we really are doing in terms of better. I don't want to say better than we realize in this space, and that's why I love this process circle, Mike, that you created. And can we like real talk, Mike? Real talk, bro. You're good at what you do. Like my sister just told me this earlier today as we close out. We just acknowledge that you all did something today that showed that even if we don't say forgiveness is possible, or even F forgiveness, right? But what we just did today, we know that we can process forgiveness. right?
Mm,
Or the lack of forgiveness. So that's something we know. There's steps that we can begin doing. That is hopeful to me. Mike, like I might go on a tangent. I'm gonna stop real quick because I get excited when I think about that. But another thing I would say, forgiveness is not just a person, right? Because sometimes I see that that we like, I gotta forgive the person. It's about you too, right? It's about
mm-hmm,
freeing yourself. So let's continue the conversation. But I wanted to say, Mike, that framework you did, I went back and I looked at it and I put like all the thoughts that I saw that was resonating with it in the space. And it helps, man. Like, I'm not saying there's steps, but just to kind of put it out there, I think you helped to frame that it is a process, but we can process forgiveness. And we just
yes.
did that. We kind of did that today together as a community. So I'll stop here. Any last thoughts, man? Because
Mm,
I heard from Heidi B. Too much information with consumption without being able to process it, frustration, right? So I always ask this question 2 minutes afterwards. Man, bro, you good at what you do, by the way. I'm gonna say that again. Like 2 minutes after this, like what would you say? Where does one start, right? Especially when it comes to tending to oneself, because I'm serious in saying that I don't know that I heard that in the chat too. I don't know, right, where we all landed, but I know I at least hear people want to start differently
right.
or start and continue, right? So what would you say we can start doing 2 minutes after this?
Yeah. So first things first, thank you very much. I did not let that compliment pass by. I am receiving that and I'm taking that in. And yes,
I bet.
I am so fucking good at what I do. And number
I
two,
bet.
I would love for you to, if you could send me that summary, so that I can put it in
Got
my
you.
group chats and everything, because that's beautiful. That will help me out so much in my conversations going forward and our process going forward. Um, and the thing that of course for me, it's that it goes back to the simplest practice that I offer is setting appointments with yourself, keeping those appointments, staying present in those appointments, and then tending to what shows up. So we have emotions that show up every time, all the time. We have thoughts that show up all the time. We have things that happen in our bodies all the time. And much of what we've learned is how to bypass those things, how to dismiss those things, and how to neglect those things. But setting those appointments, setting alarms in your phone, and then putting a timer in your phone so that you have a set amount of time for you to just pay attention to you. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's my body wanting to do? And then responding in kind. That in and of itself, that's why I had that exclamation that Denard talked about early on. You have to feel it to heal. You have to feel it to heal it. You have to feel to forgive. The feeling is a very important part of the process. It is a very important part of the process because our feelings give us information about what works, what doesn't, what hurts, what doesn't, what's healthy and what's not for us personally. So getting to ourselves and getting to our sensation, our actual physical sensation of self is what I would ask. What I would and not even ask, I would just invite us into is 2 minutes after this, go ahead and set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes, focus in on your breath, and it's like what's in me right now? Because you might have a whole lot flaring up in you around just this process. I didn't get any answers. I didn't get to share stuff. What were they even saying? Or, aha, I have a little bit more now, or whatever it is. There's something that's happening in you right now that's asking you to pay attention to it. So, my invitation 2 minutes after this, pay attention to that. Pay attention to you.
Mm. Pay attention. And again, shout out to Circles. Shout out to every person that's here.
Hmm.
Those that chose to respond in the chat. So pay attention to you. And I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to leave the chat open for because if you want to still process, you want to capture some of the things that were shared. And there's a lot of nuggets in the chat. But most importantly, I don't want you to overwhelm yourself. I do
Hmm.
want you to shift back to that space where you notice what's coming up for you. So what I will do is just leave it open for a minute. And then after that, then we're closing that space, that room. But don't close out your heart or your body and your mind to what's happening in you, because just like we just were, that invitational language, give yourself an opportunity to pay attention to you. Mike, again, man, it's a pleasure. And if you ever go to Czar room again, I will not forgive you. I'm going to withhold that forgiveness. You're going to know what it looks like. You're going to know what it feels like, because it's going to be this little bald head black boy telling you, you tried it. You tried it. You tried it. All right. Listen, you all have a great one. And hold on to the space that you have for your healing, because it's necessary. We all need it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Nard.
Likewise, bro. Bye, everyone.
Till next time, everybody, take care of yourself.
Bye.
Wait, it's over?